Joining me now to share more is Alan Taylor, Managing Partner of Endeavor Catalyst. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So first of all, what is Endeavor Catalyst? What service are you providing?
So Endeavor Catalyst is a global venture capital fund that invests mostly at Series A and B directly into Endeavor entrepreneurs. And so we provide capital and support and mentorship and coaching to entrepreneurs elsewhere, all around the world in Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, parts of Europe, and Southeast Asia.
Why did you decide to focus on entrepreneurs in different parts of the world?
It's the DNA of Endeavor. So we believe that amazing entrepreneurs can come from anywhere. We've actually been doing this since the late 1990s, so it's almost 3 decades of working with founders around the world. And the thing we think is not as evenly distributed are the networks of mentorship, of expertise, and of capital, which still tend to concentrate in places like Silicon Valley or New York City. And so we think there's a big opportunity backing founders in all these other places around the world.
And what does backing those founders look like in practice? How are you providing them this mentorship?
Yeah, so there's 2 layers to it. You mentioned Endeavor itself is a global organization that runs a really rigorous selection process. We have teams on the ground actually now in about 50 countries, 63 cities around the world. And we're really selecting into this network kind of the top 1% of founders, right? And then we're backing them with coaching, mentorship, a peer network, right? So they can meet with other founders who are at their stage of scaling. And what we work with them on is scaling their companies and also scaling themselves as leaders. The second layer then is Endeavor Catalyst, where we actually put a check, right, and invest a few $1 million into the business.
Any success stories you want to share?
Oh, I mean, there's some fantastic ones, but you can build a really big company from anywhere, right? Endeavor exists because in one of the first cohorts that we supported back in the late 1990s, one of the companies grew up to be Mercado Libre, which is like the Amazon or eBay of Latin America. It's a US listed $100 billion plus market cap company, right? You can build a really big company from anywhere. In this case, it came from Argentina.
All right, and what is your take on the current state of the IPO market?
Look, I think 2026 is going to be a big year for IPOs, including for international companies. So I mentioned Mercado Libre. You have businesses listed here like Nubank. Latin America has 5 or 6 US listed companies. I think in 2026, we could see several more joining that group.
Where do you think the next wave is going to come from?
So 2 interesting answers. For US listed businesses, I think Latin America is the region to watch because, again, you already have 5, 6, 7 US listed companies out of the region. And I think over the next 2 or 3 years, you could get as many as 10 more, right? These are businesses like WellHub, which is originally known as Gympass, coming out of Brazil, Creditas, also from Brazil, Walla from Argentina, Rappi from Colombia, Clip from Mexico. These are big companies, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, millions of customers, and they're ready to be US listed companies when the market and the investors here are ready for them.
What does Endeavor look for in an entrepreneur?
Radical self-belief, right? They have to really believe in what they're doing. Intellectual curiosity. They actually have to not think they know everything, right? But be open to kind of mentorship and coaching and support. And resilience, right? Just incredible amount of determination. We think those are some of the key ingredients to what makes what we call a high impact entrepreneur.
And how are founders in emerging markets thinking about liquidity today?
Good question. I think they're thinking about it more than ever before because there's more private capital now going into emerging markets. And so people have to think about liquidity for themselves as founders, for their employees, right? We're doing a lot more employee tenders and things than we used to. And for their investors. And so I think, they think about it really the same way a US company would. IPO is a path for liquidity, M&A is a path, and increasingly what we've seen in the last 18 months, secondary sales can also be an important path.
And do you see global companies approaching the scale needed for a US listing? And what indicators are you watching for?
Yeah, I really do. And maybe this is the biggest piece of news, right, for people watching today is there are really big companies already in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa, in Latin America, which I mentioned. I mean, if you take Europe as an example, Revolut is a very big company already, private market valuation of $75 billion. 11 Labs, which came out of Poland, right, already has a private market valuation of 6 or 7 billion. Endeavor backs a business called Bending Spoons, which is from Italy. in the private markets now valued at $11 billion. These guys are at a scale where they could be public companies tomorrow. It's just a matter of when they choose to be. But we look for all the same things you would in the US, right? We look for top line revenue growth, we look for Rule of 40, we look for kind of the quality of that revenue and financial health, net retention, all the same metrics apply to these international businesses.
All right, Alan Taylor, Managing Partner of Endeavor Catalyst, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.